I'm going to tell you about my incredible journey from public assistance to becoming Chief International Counsel of a Fortune 500 company. I am also going to tell you the story of the incredible woman who motivated me, the acts of kindness of two individuals, and the lessons I learned from that journey. My mother is an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. She moved my sister and I to Lorain, Ohio when I was 4 and she was 2. We went to Lorain because my grandmother lived there. Her husband worked the steel plant. At that time, U.S. Steel employed approximately 13,000 individuals, many of whom were Hispanic. There was a lot of other industrial facilities throughout the area that employed thousands and thousands of people from different types of races and religions and countries in the world. Lorain, the town where I grew up, was a melting pot. There were 54 different nationalities in that town. My mother had little in the way of education. She spoke little English and had physical problems that prevented her from doing any type of physical labor. Because of that, we were forced to go on public assistance. We received approximately $1,800 a year. With that, we had to pay rent of $50 a month, utility bills, groceries. We also received food stamps. Sometimes we received cheese and peanut butter from these places that would donate it by the truckload. We'd stand in line to get that. It was slim pickings at the end of the month. It was not a lot of money to live on. To help make ends meet, when I was 9, I started shining shoes in the local taverns. I charged 25 cents per pair of shoes. Believe me, I hit every local tavern, and there were many. When you have an industrialized area like South Lorain was, there were more bars in my neighborhood alone than there probably were in the whole city. Workers would go from the steel plant to the bar, and some of them even went from the bar back to the steel plant. They did like to drink. It seemed to be a blue-collar thing at the time, but that was good for business for me. The drunker they were, sometimes the better tips I received. I brought that money home, and we used that money to help make ends meet for the rest of the month. It was a community affair. My sister at one time started working in a beauty shop, making, I don't remember how much, but again, that money was contributed so that we could live and survive. We lived in a tiny little dumpy apartment that was above a bar. There were 3 other apartments. The bar was a country western bar. I learned every Hank Williams tune. I learned so many other country western stars like Charlie Pride. Every once in a while we would have uninvited guests like rats and cockroaches. For a while I thought some of the rats would be pets. This was when I was, of course, much younger. In the morning when my sister and I would go to school, we'd open the door, and sometimes there would be a drunk at the door. We just walk over and go on. My mother would call the bar downstairs to get rid of the drunk. Sometimes we couldn't even open the door. Our bedroom overlooked the steel plant and also the sidewalk downstairs out in front of the bar. At night we would be entertained by people cussing and swearing and some fights. It was quite entertaining, really, for us at young age. We thought it was really cool. One night we heard a lot of noise and a lot of screaming, and we heard Tony, somebody we knew. Tony was a Mexican man from the neighborhood. There was a drunk patron from the bar who obviously wasn't Mexican because he was making racial slurs against Tony. The fight developed. Tony knocked him down, held him down face up, pulled out a knife and was ready to cut him. My mother yelled, "No lo corte," don't cut him. With that, he looked up, put the knife in his pocket, and ran away. When the police came, of course, we didn't know nothing because we didn't want to get Tony in trouble. The furniture we had in the apartment was whatever we can get. When the legs on the couches would break, sometimes we would get coffee cans and put them underneath to support it until we can get something else. The neighborhood was also rough. If somebody asked you, do you know Raul Rodriguez, and you said no, they would punch you. If you said yes, they would still punch you. I'd come home with fights, torn clothing. My mother would say, you got in a fight again, sometimes a black eye, and I didn't start it. Well, that's great. You just ripped the clothes that we can't afford to replace for you. But I didn't start it. You never started. But it was that type of neighborhood. There was also some type of racism. You might look at me and say, ah, you look like a guy that had white privilege. You don't have an accent, you're white. But if history has shown anything, it's that racism is not necessarily color dependent. It also can be applied against people with come from certain places, certain economic status, and at that time in South Lorraine, there was prejudice against Puerto Ricans, and I'm half Puerto Rican, we were Dominicans, we were all lumped into that. If you were Puerto Rican living in South Lorraine, the presumption was that you carried a knife. I heard the term spick so much that I just became immune to it. You know, that's the N word for us. I learned early on never to let people bother me when they said that. They just meant nothing to me. Something I dreaded very much was report card day. I knew that I would get yelled at when I got home, and my mother would scream at the C's and D's. Although she didn't speak English very well, she knew what an A, B, C, D, and F were. But Mom, I passed. She said, do you want to be an idiot the rest of your life? Look around you, where we're at. Do you really want to do this? But Mom, I passed. Well, that didn't work, and I get a reprieve. And that happened all the way through elementary school. Finally, in the 7th grade, I decided I was going to study. I got up from my bed, I'm sitting there, and I just said, I have to study. Now let me stop here for a moment and tell you about the two individuals who provided me with this kindness that also catapulted me into this I gotta study mode. One of them was one of the drunk guys at the tavern. I'm shining his shoes. He says to me, young man, why are you shining shoes? Well, sir, I want to buy a desk and I want to save money for a bike. Really? Why do you want a desk for? Because I want to study. As I'm shining his shoes, he says, come with me. I'm going to buy you a desk. I'm oh, wait a minute, I'm not going with you. Shirley, the barmaid, said, you can go, he's okay. So I went. My shoe shine kit in hand. I walked with this man for a block and a half to Mars Furniture Store, where he bought a desk for $45 at that time. That's what they cost. I had that desk until I was in my 50s. I finally gave it away to somebody because I had no place for it, but I held it for that time because that moment, that desk held a special place in my heart. The second act of kindness was Brother Cyprian Kittle. He's a brother from the local Catholic church. He's long deceased. He was a kind man. He took many of the Hispanic children under his wing. We belonged to Sacred Heart Chapel. It was primarily a Hispanic church. Only one English Mass, and it was at 9:30. Brother Cyprian took a bunch of the Hispanic kids under his wing. Some he taught how to sing. Some he taught how to play an instrument. I couldn't do either, so he taught me how to talk. Brother Cyprian, please, can I sing? No, you can't sing, Rudy. I'm sorry. It's not a gift that God gave you, but I want to teach you how to speak in public. And I would lead the Mass every Saturday at 9:30 for I don't remember how long. Please stand, please sit. We will now sing hymn number such and such. So back to the 7th grade, I decided I'm going to study. And I had no study habits. I studied and read and reread. I knew I had to do more than study. I also had to be a well-rounded individual. Remember, Brother Cyprian said, aim high. He also said, explore whatever you can. So I did things. I played football. I wasn't good at it. I did something else. When I got to high school, I studied. I was on the wrestling team. I was on the school paper. I became class president. I did everything I could to make me well-rounded because I thought at that time that that's what's going to help me get a scholarship to college. I wasn't going to be able to afford college, obviously, and unless I had a scholarship, I couldn't go. I could have perhaps gone to community college, but I wanted to go to a 4-year college. And it so happened, doing all those activities, listening to Brother Cyprian in the back of my mind, listening to my mother yelling, study, I was able to get a full ride to an undergraduate university. I did the same there. I studied. My grades were okay, but they weren't the 4.0s. I was also involved in other activities. I was varsity wrestling, captain of the team, Model United Nations. Again, I tried to be that well-rounded person. When it came time to apply for law school, it was the most competitive time ever I've ever seen for law schools. People with 4.0 and up were not getting in. I applied to several places. I got rejected in some, but I got accepted into two, one of which is St. Louis University, and only conditionally. I had to pass a course in the summer. If I passed that course, I would get into law school. Now it was on me. It was affirmative action that allowed the door to open for me, but it was my effort that was going to keep me in the room. For a simple, well, it wasn't a simple class, it was a very difficult contracts class. I studied from the morning till the evening on weekends. I read and reread the material. I did well in the class. I was admitted to law school. I had a problem that I didn't think I would ever have, and actually I never really thought about it. How was I going to pay for law school? I could have stayed home and said I don't have the money and tried to work and do something, but I didn't know about student loans at the time. I get to the law school. I have an appointment with the dean. I said, Dean, I don't have any money to pay for this. Can you suggest anything? He looked at me like I had two heads. He said, go to Tower Grove Bank, get a loan. I'll defer your tuition till then. I'll give you a job in the law library at the reference desk. I found the job working at a local YMCA. That's how I got through law school. I worked 40 hours a week at both part-time jobs, studying. I still found time to do other things, but it was difficult. It was really difficult. I did not graduate at the top of my class, but I graduated. And even then, I still did things like moot court, law review. I was able to study in Amsterdam, The Hague. I was able to study in Brussels. All that because I just wanted to make it happen. Remember Brother Cyprian and my mother, study. Brother Cyprian, aim for the sky. You'll land somewhere in the middle. I followed that all the way through. When I graduated, because I didn't have the best grades in the class, I didn't think I would get a job. So I opened my practice. And I did this with two older lawyers who rented space for me, or to me actually. I paid them with my time. Whatever they gave me, I split with them. Whatever I brought in, they gave to me. Part of the fee. Now, St. Louis is a place that the question you're asked is, what does your father do and where'd you go to high school? You are not asked, where'd you go to college? I told people I went to Cleveland, so they thought I was from Cleveland High School. Oh, you're from around here. I hung out a shingle without knowing anybody, and thank God I was able to build a very successful practice as a solo person, having a few partners here and there, but I was able to build it. I did whatever came in the door and could pay a fee. Criminal cases, civil cases, trials, traffic tickets, divorces. At a certain point in time, I started doing international adoption and also some international law. I represented some small to medium-sized companies who did work in Ecuador, Mexico, primarily because of my ability to speak Spanish. The international adoptions helped me with understanding really civil law systems quite well. I learned how to operate through multiple cultures that aren't my own. It was quite a learning experience. Sometime in 2006, I get a call from the GC of a Fortune 500 company who asked me to come down to the headquarters. I am thrilled because I'm thinking he wants me to represent this company, and oh my God, I am a solo practitioner with a Fortune 500 company as a client. I thought, wow, what an opportunity. While I'm there, I'm meeting with this group of people whom I did not know at the time was the C-suite. Thank God I didn't know, because I spoke pretty bluntly. I mean, bluntly. I told them, you're doing this all wrong. If I were you, I would do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then after 1, 2, 3, and 4 is done, I would then do 5, 6, and 7. They say thank you. Afterwards, 5 minutes later, he asked me, what would it take for you to do this for us full time? I said, really? Are you serious? I started to put some doubt into myself. I don't know that I can do this. I know nothing about title insurance, and I've never worked for anybody. You realize who you're asking to come do this for you. We'll teach you title insurance. We're more interested in your language abilities and what you know about overseas matters. We promise we'll make it worth your while. You don't have to leave St. Louis because you'll be on a plane most of the time. Just one thing, by the way, don't make me stupid. Don't make me look stupid. I'm thinking, oh my God, no pressure. 5 minutes, yes, I'm going to do it. And that's when I started working for the Fortune 500 company. At first I thought, I don't have the pedigree some of these people do. There are a lot of freaky smart people in my company. But I thought, I'm just going to do it. I learned a very valuable lesson in this journey. And that is that everything you do, from the moment you're born, elementary school, high school, your life experience, all that experience is never wasted. All the things that I did that you might think at first blush have nothing to do with a Fortune 500 company. What does international adoptions have to do with the Fortune 500 company? Believe it or not, it does. It helped me meander through these complicated systems. It helped me deal with human emotions. All the tragedies I've had in my life helped me for dispute resolution, helped me with managing the politics of a company sometimes. I've always been fortunate that I've been able to work well with everybody. It's a great company to work for. Knowledge is not wasted. That's one of the biggest lessons I learned from my journey. Whatever it is you do, at some point or another, you are going to use it. I've been with the company now going on 16 years. The lesson, additional lesson from this journey is learn to love what you're doing. From that day in 7th grade when I decided I was going to be a lawyer, that's what I wanted, and that's what makes me happy. I love being a lawyer. It has its frustrations, but that's what I love to do. That is my success. That's what I love doing. I wake up in the morning, and that's what I like doing. And it took a long way to get here, but I just stuck to it. I would say to anybody who's looking at a career, whether it's law or something else, be passionate about it. Make sure it's what you want to do. Prepare yourself from a very young age. Don't ever let any piece of adversity stop you. And if you get knocked down, get up again. I've had my share of those. If somebody like me with humble beginnings can become a professional, anyone can. Thank you.